Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 1 of the 2018 Sinquefield Cup, played for the 6th time in St. Louis in the USA, and the first classical event of the 2018 Grand Chess Tour. These are the 10 participants. Magnus Carlsen is in town as a wildcard. He chose not to play in the 2018 Grand Chess Tour to focus on the defense of his World Championship title later this year in November against Caruana. The other 9 players are the same as in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz that we've just had and that I covered on Chess to Impress. Lenier Dominguez was the wildcard in that event and has been replaced by Carlsen. It's a 10-player round robin, which means all players will play each other once. 100 minutes for 40 moves, followed by 60 minutes for the remainder of the game, with a 30-second delay from move 1. 9 rounds from August 18th till 27th, with a rest day on Thursday, August 23rd. This is the prize money. The winner will pick up $75,000, and there's a total of $300,000, and you can see the Grand Chess Tour points there. The top 4 of the Grand Chess Tour will play in the Grand Chess Tour finals in London in December. It's the 6th time, as I said, that the Sinquefield Cup has been played, and we have 5 different winners so far. Carlsen won the first event, Caruana the second. That was the event where he started with 7 wins out of 7, and a tournament performance rating of over 3100. Aronian won in 2015, Wesley So, the homeboy, won in 2016, and last year it was Maxime Vachier-Lagrave who won the tournament. Round 1 was played on Saturday, August 18th, and these were the results. Aronian beat Karyakin. It was a Berlin defense of the Ruy Lopez where the queens were swapped on move 8, and Aronian managed to outplay Karyakin. Nakamura and Anand played a quick draw. Mamedyarov beat So in a rook endgame which lasted 20 moves, and Caruana and Grishuk played the longest game of the round, which ended in a draw. That leaves last year's winner, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Last year he beat Magnus Carlsen in a beautiful game with the black pieces. And how did he get on this year against the world champion? Let's have a look. Vachier-Lagrave is white, Carlsen is black. It's the 18th of August 2018. E4 from Vachier-Lagrave, and the world champion played the Sicilian. Knight f3, knight c6. And now d4 leads to the classical Sicilian, but Vachier-Lagrave plays knight c3, postponing a possible d4 move to get into the main line, but it gives black an extra option, which is e5, played by Carlsen, making a possible d4 from white now much more difficult to realize. He will have to prepare it with c2, c3, for example. Black is setting up a solid front. The drawback is that the light squares become weak in black's position, and also it turns out that the king's bishop is becoming a problem piece for black, as we'll see. Bishop c4, immediately looking at those light squares which are weakened by black's 2 pawn moves. g6, this move surprised Vachier-Lagrave, as he said in his interview after the game, and he reacted, as he called it, in a natural way. And Carlsen was asked, were you surprised by this aggressive move from Vachier-Lagrave? And Carlsen said, well, actually it was not an aggressive move, because after h6, which is anticipating white's next move, h5, and then g5, closing down the position on the king side, it turned out that h4 was a positional move, as the world champion explains. And now black has committed another pair of pawns on dark squares, which weakens his light squares even more. And in an open position that would be disastrous for black, but this is a very closed, locked up position, and white is running out of break moves, which are needed to get something going in this position. Knight h2, he's going to reroute the knight to the nice square on e3, where he will have great influence on those weakened light squares. Knight f6 from Carlsen. The d-pawns were played up by both players, and there goes the knight on its way to e3. Bishop g4 hitting the queen. f3, bishop e6 to counter on the light squares, And there goes that knight to that beautiful square on e3. Bishop g7. As said, this is black's problem piece. It's not doing anything with all those pawns on dark squares. Knight cd5, jumping in that nice square on d5. Carlsen castled, and c3, possibly preparing break moves with d4 or b4. The problem with the d4 break, as the Grandmasters in the live broadcast explained, is that it may bring this bishop on g7 back into the game, back into life after a few trades in the center. So white has to be careful with those break moves. And Carlsen plays rook b8. He has his own idea about the break move with b5. a4 to make that break move a bit more difficult. a6 to support b5. And g4. Vachier-Lagrave said afterwards he was not sure about this move, as it takes that square away for his knight to go to in a possible variation. And Carlsen answered with b5, which MVL called the critical position of the game. He took, and after Carlsen took back, he was thinking, Vachier-Lagrave was thinking about rook a6. He gave this variation, taking on c4 and taking on c6, so a piece is swapped there. And then bishop takes d5, e takes d5, and he showed c takes d3. And if you now take with the queen, then e4, f takes e4, and rook e8. And Vachier-Lagrave was not very happy with this, he said. That's why he did not choose this variation, because he felt his rook on c6 was now misplaced. Another variation Vachier-Lagrave gave is that after c takes d3, white does not take back on d3 with the queen, but plays knight f5. But in the end, Vachier-Lagrave decided against this variation, starting with rook a6. Also, Carlsen mentioned this option after the game. He chose bishop b3. And MVL called this a concession after the game, and he said, now I'm not the one playing for a win after this move. Let's see what happens. Knight e7 from Carlsen. Vachier-Lagrave took. Queen takes. Castling. Queen b7. And this was a move that surprised the Grandmasters in the studio very much. Vachier-Lagrave takes on e6. F takes e6. And this gives black back some light square control. He controls now the d5 and f5 squares. And also, this game is really about break moves with all these pawns being fixed. And now the d5 break move is an option for black in the future. And that may even bring his bishop on g7 back to life, which is still black's problem. c4 to make that break move more difficult, the d5 break move, b4 and b3. Grandmaster Ashley in the live broadcast did not like how MVL had played this. White has no play left in this position, he said. That is, he'll never get a pawn break now, and only black has a possible pawn break with d5 as mentioned. Knight d7. Black would love to have this knight on d4, and he's going to try and get a knight there. This knight now, which once was a beautiful piece, is now a problem piece for white. It's hard to see how white can improve that knight, put it on a square where it does something, and even if we can find a square where it would do something, how do we get the knight there? Queen e2. Vachier-Lagrave is going to set up a defensive fortress. Rook bd8, making room for the knight. Knight c2, knight b8 on its way to d4. Possibly this way. Bishop e3, knight c6, and king g2. White has deployed his king, knight, and bishop to deal with a possible knight d4 jump. He set up a very strong defensive fortress. Rook f7 from Carlsen, and rook a4. Grandmaster Ashley said MVL must have been thinking here, yes, I screwed this position up somewhat, but you still have a horrible bishop on g7, Magnus, and I will be able to keep you out. And that's what his plan was. to make sure he would keep this position and hold it to a draw. Rook df8, doubling on the half-open f-file. Bishop g1, nice move. If now knight d4 comes, as Grandmaster Sarah showed, then possibly knight takes d4, e takes d4, and then the bishop can go to h2 to deal with a possible black bishop coming to e5. That was the idea of bishop g1. Bishop f6 from Carlsen, rook fa1, and bishop d8, with a possible idea to go to b8 through c7 and keep control over a possible white rook landing on the 7th rank. The bishop would avoid that happening, and that way the bishop has at least some function in this position, controlling the a7 square. Rook a8 was played by MVL, and now Carlsen decided to, he called this a half sacrifice. He gave his 2 rooks for white's queen. He also got a pawn. Rook takes f3, queen takes, rook takes, king takes, king g7, king e2, bishop b6, rook 8 to a6, and king f7. Here the grandmasters in the broadcast were tearing their hairs out. Who is better here in this position with this material imbalance? Sarah said that if anybody is better, then it would be black, again because of this possible pawn break option that he'll have, which he can prepare, he can maneuver forever and then play for that pawn break, while what all white can do is wait and try to hold this position. Rook back to a8, and we actually saw a move repetition. Rook back, rook back, and king back, and both players agreed to a draw. Carlsen said that he did not see a way to be able to break through white's fortress, and this game ended peacefully in a draw. So this game completes the results of round 1. We had 2 wins for white and 3 draws, and the Sinquefield Cup 2018 is on the way. The second round, played on Sunday the 19th of August, will see Caruana against Aronian, Grishuk Mamedyarov, So Nakamura, Anand Vachier-Lagrave, and Carlsen against Karyakin. A rematch of the 2016 World Championships. You may want to know when the game Carlsen against Caruana is planned. Well, that will be in round 7 on Saturday, August 25th. That will be quite an occasion. Hope you will follow the Sinquefield Cup 2018 with me. I'm planning to do daily videos. Maybe not straight away after the round like this one. Maybe the next day, because of the time difference between St. Louis and Ireland, where I am located. Hope you enjoyed this first round report. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. Please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, if you like the coverage of the Sinquefield Cup, please share the video on social media. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.